Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of FTOPS 8 Final Table Highlights. I'm Ali Najad. Today it's time for event number 4, the $200 Pot Limit Holdem hosted by Marco Traniello. Over 1,000 players brought the prize pool to over $215 grand, and first place would walk with just shy of $50,000. Ralphie 4 came into the final table with an overwhelming chip lead, better than 3-1 over second place one out all in. Kenny Rapp and Bonafide were in the 300s, Stellar Cards and Pie Master in the 200s, and with the blinds at 6 and 12,000, Jumissa, Miss Oldie, and M's Boss would have to make moves soon. We kicked the action off with M's Boss on the button. Pie Master and Bonafide were in the blinds. Ralphie 4 would open the pot for a raise to 42,000. It was folded around to M's Boss, who had less than 10 big blinds at this point and was looking to double up as he moved all in for 112 and change. He would get liberally called by Ralphie 4, who showed Queen 5 of diamonds. M's had pocket 10s and his hand was good on the flop, on the turn, and on the river, and he would double through Ralphie 4 to almost $250,000 in chips. Miss Oldie was on the button with the blinds up to 8 and 16,000. It was folded around to Ralphie 4, who again open-raised the pot, this time to 56,000, and it was Jumissa's turn to shove all in with almost 71 grand in front of him. He took his time before making that decision. Then as it was folded around to Pie Master in the big blind, he decided he would ship it all in. Ralphie would call and show Ace-Queen offsuit. He was up against Ace-King offsuit and pocket 5s. It was 4-4 ace on the flop, and both Ralphie and Pie Master had made aces up. The turn was a 10 and the river was a 9, and Pie Master would scoop the entire pot with aces and 4s with a king kicker. Jumissa was sent home in 9th place, taking home $3,443. Kenny Rapp was on the button with the blind steady at 8 and 16,000. Action was folded around to Bonafide, who would raise, putting in roughly a third of his stack. Ralphie 4 wasn't going to get shy now. He raised enough to put Bonafide all in, who made the call with pocket 7s. He was up against Ace-6 of hearts, and the ace ball peeled off on the flop. Bonafide could not improve on the turn or the river and said goodbye in 8th place with $4,842. Stellar Cards and Miss Oldie were in the blinds. Ralphie 4 was on the button. Action was folded around to him. His punishing size stack of $1.4 million and change went to work, making it 56,000 to go. Stellar Cards then potted it, making it 184,000 to go. Action was on Miss Oldie. He would essentially be going all in if he decided to make this call. More likely to ship it if he was going to play the hand. He decided to take a moment to think things over, eventually folding from the big blind, putting the action back on Ralphie. Almost $130,000 to call. He made that call. Stellar only had 7,000 left, and it went in on the flop. Stellar showed pocket jacks against Ralphie's queen jack. The flop was 9 king 6. Ralphie needed a queen or a 10 to take the lead, instead catching a 9 and a king respectively and doubling Stellar Cards up to almost $400,000. Blinds were up to 10 and 20,000 at this point, leaving Miss Oldie, Pie Master, and Kenny Rapp stacks in somewhat uncomfortable position. One out made it 70,000 to go under the gun, and the action was folded around to M's Boss in the small blind, who made it 230,000, and then it was insta-shipped by Pie Master with almost 260,000. Action was back on one out, who had a big decision on his hands. He had been re-raised, and then Pie Master had gone all in. He decided his hand wasn't worth playing and laid it down. M's Boss made the call, and it was 2 aces against 2 kings. M's had Pie covered, and the flop, turn, and the river did not improve Pie's kings, leaving him to say goodbye in 7th place, taking home $6,456. The blinds were up to 12 and 24,000, and chip leader Ralphie 4's stack had cooled off to less than 1.1 million. Action was folded around to the small blind, who was the short stack. One out all in made it 72,000 to go, and Kenny Rapp re-raised to 216,000. One out moved all in and was called by Kenny's pocket queens as he showed ace-10 of hearts. The flop was no help, but the turn improved the situation, as one out now had 7 outs. He could hit a 4 or an ace to stay alive. Instead, he picked up the 3 of hearts and was sent home in 6th place, making almost $10,000, while Kenny took down a $572,000 pot. M's boss was on the button. Kenny Rapp and Ralphie were in the blinds. Ralphie's stack had cooled off to under $250,000 at this point. Blinds were up to $15,000 and $30,000. Under the gun, Stellar Cards min raised to $60,000, and Miss Oldie was scratching her head, trying to figure out what Stellar could possibly have. She would eventually request time before making up her mind. She would eventually settle on just calling Stellar's raise. M's boss and Kenny got out of the way, and how could Ralphie resist getting over 5-1 on a call? The flop came down Jack, Deuce, King with a couple of diamonds. Ralphie and Stellar would both check over to Miss Oldie, who again took her time. She eventually decided checking was in her best interest, and the 10 of clubs peeled off on the turn. Action was on Ralphie. He had just over the pot with $204,000, but fired out 97.5. That was half the pot at the time. Miss Oldie would get 3-1 on a call. Instead, she shipped it all in, $411,000, and was insta-called by Ralphie, who had kings and jacks. Miss Oldie showed ace, queen of spades for the nut straight, and Ralphie, who had had the chip lead with over $1.4 million coming in, was eliminated in 5th place, taking home $13,450. M's boss was now the chip leader, holding almost $1.25 million in his stack. Blinds were at $20,000 and $40,000, meaning it was trouble for Miss Oldie's stack. She needed a double up and needed it quickly. Decided to pot it from the small blind, making it $120,000. M's boss thought for a little while before putting Miss Oldie all in. She would make the call and show King 9 off suit. She was up against Ace 6 off. The flop came 3 clubs, and Miss Oldie's flush draw was better than M's boss's. But on the turn, M's boss made a pair of aces, and Miss Oldie desperately needed a club, something other than the 5 of clubs, of course. The river was a jack of spades, however, and Miss Oldie would bust out in 4th place, making $17,754. M's boss was still the chip leader in 3-handed action, but had company in the form of Kenny Rapp's $1.3 million stack. M's made it $100,000 to go, opening the pot from the small blind. Kenny re-raised it to $300,000. Action was back in M's corner, who then re-raised it to $720,000. Kenny moved it all in, and M's would call, showing ace-king against 2 queens, classic race. Flop was all low cards. The turn paired the board, as did the river, and M's queens would hold up, sending Kenny Rapp to the rail in 3rd place with $22,703. Well, it was going to be a long and uphill climb for Stellar Cards if he was going to get back in this thing. He started out by limping on the button. M said run it, and the flop came 5-deuce-8. M's let out for $50,000. Stellar would make it $230,000, over half of his remaining stack. M's would then put them all in, and he made the call, showing 8s with a 7. M's boss, however, had 8s and deuces. The turn and the river were no help to Stellar Cards, and M's boss was the winner, taking home $48,420. So Stellar Cards finished 2nd for $30,666. 3rd through 9th took home $22 and change to $3,000 and change. Not too shabby for a $200 buy-in. Don't forget, the $500 No Limit Holdem main event is still forthcoming. That'll be on May 18th and hosted by Jennifer Harmon. If you'd like to qualify for that or any of our other remaining FTOPS 8 events, just go to Full Tilt Poker, click on the Tournaments tab, and then on the Satellites tab. If you want to hang out with yours truly, click the Mixed Games tab and scroll down to the 816 horse table entitled Ali Najad. Until next time, I hope you've enjoyed this edition of FTOPS 8 Final Table Highlights. This is Ali Najad saying so long.